Welcome back, friends. We were talking about customer based brand equity. I laid out a larger ground in front of you with a discussion on brand value, brand equity and brand power, and then tried to elaborate upon these things with a context of familiarity and favorability, and I emphasized upon how a number can be given to as far as the equity goes, and the most important thing which I tried to mention in front of you is that it traverses from the product towards the organizational valuation. So, here it is, brand equity versus customer equity. Brand equity illustrates the worth of the brand, that is the value added to a product by branding it. So, that is where, and I mentioned about a denim product, or let us say other examples as well. And customer equity relates to lifetime values that are important to consumers as far as that particular association goes, should I say. And then there are components of brand equity, and you would find several kinds of descriptions in due course of time. But I told you earlier that several people have tried different kinds of methodologies, all of them are working, but one can't say that one of those is a composite one. So, there are several perspectives associated about using those kind of methodologies. I would be referring to few of those briefly as well. Now, components of brand equity are related to consumer perception, what consumer believes a brand represents. Here, remember this word believes. Earlier, I left you with an aspect of S associated with values. So, remember that, take note of it, write it somewhere, and I will come back to that. Here, remember believes. How do you reach to a belief basically? It is a long procedure, and that is what the authors have been referring to. Then comes in resulting value. What return a brand generates for the business as a whole. How all the stakeholders they get associated with a particular kind of a brand. Now, that, just to give you a clue, in times of difficulty, for example, that again is a test that if customers stick with you, if your stakeholders they stick with you, if your retailers they keep up the pace with you, if they support you in propelling your brand, and times of difficulty can be because of several kinds of external aspects also. For example, COVID-19 has tested so many organizations in terms of their sales or their efforts, or let us say customer satisfaction, or in several aspects, should I say. But then many of them they kept pace, and we saw in last session how several brands they are rising as far as their value goes. That means they are doing something because of which in despite of the testing time, their customer, their stakeholders are giving them value, they are sticking with them. What is that something? I will be coming back to that element when I would be talking about marketing programs associated with brand development or brand equity development. Then positive and negative effects. What will be the brand reputation amongst the customers? And reputation I have talked about earlier as well. Let us take this example. This is a famous example nowadays, but talked about example, many authors have mentioned that, I have given a reference here. So, you see, founded in July 2003, Tesla is an electric vehicle and clean energy company based in Palo Alto, California. Many car makers they were working on this kind of a thing basically. Tesla came strongly with this kind of a proposition. Tesla started with a desire to shift the car market from gas powered to electric. Now, that can be looked upon with the perspective of vision, as author says. While most other electric car companies failed, I would not use this word fail, with all due respect to the authors, many of the electric car companies could not do so well. I have been talking about this element that they were not so overwhelmingly or greatly accepted by the customer as such. There are several reasons to that. So, they could not do well. Tesla cars, they are remarkably different, or they came up with the difference. They established that difference as they scored high for performance, style and so on. You see, whenever a new product comes in, these kind of elements they are always there, but Tesla tried to overcome them as and when they came up in front of the customer. Tesla saw an opportunity to break the usual thinking that energy efficient meant slow, needing a charge and so on. So, they identified this as an opportunity and they worked upon that. And definitely these are genuine concerns. You see, for past many years, Indian market EVs are struggling with this kind of a proposition wherein customer has so many questions on how frequently you would require a charge and so on, and how difficult it would be to charge a vehicle and so on. So, I have also been looking for a change in terms of EV, but somehow I do not have a charging station here in my surroundings. Now, Tesla has capitalized on the consumer's readiness to do something for the environment and has created a movement, sort of they have carried along people, acceptability is high. So, Tesla took a different approach. They started at high end to create a strong desire for their beautiful cars and so on. How they approached the market, how they differentiated the product in front of their target customer, that is this story is all about. Tesla went public in June 2010 at a price of $17 per share. 8 years later, the stock was trading at $335, and I told you last session they are number 14 as far as brand valuation goes, rising sharp. Tesla, the most valuable car manufacturer in the US, at that particular time, as far as the stock value goes in 2010, as the this referred article says. Tesla is the 14th most valuable and fastest growing brand in the world with an increased brand value of 184% and so on, sharp rise basically. How has it happened? The story always starts from the product or the service, goes towards the organizational valuation wherein almost all the stakeholders they get involved, and that is where the brand equity comes in. We will be talking about this later on as well. Now, let me take you to brand knowledge. I told you to remember this word when I was talking about I was talking about Keller's definition of customer based brand equity. So, you see, here we come with that word once again, making a brand strong, that is brand equity, brand knowledge. Brand knowledge is the key for creating brand equity. That is what Keller told us, and that is true because it creates the differential effect that drives brand equity. See, brand equity in itself is the resultant of a differential effect. How does it comes? Largely from brand knowledge. Brand knowledge illustrates what comes to mind when a consumer thinks about a brand. Now, that is very interesting actually, and that has to be thought about in varied terms. I have been talking about marketing researches, methodologies. I have mentioned about some research methodology aspects in my product based discussions also, and one of the courses which I launched in January 2022 on integrated marketing communication, wherein I talked about marketing research at length. So, there you see what comes to your mind. For example, you say that you look at a house, for example, a builder whose colony or let us say group of houses they are well established, what comes to your, what comes to the mind of the customer basically. And I'm not talking of just the famous brands, and you can always think of these elements when you talk of Apple or Patanjali or LIC or Amul, one of my favorites. But you see, and speaking of Amul, what comes to your mind? Butter, ice cream, milk, obviously butter, utterly butterly delicious, probably. You see, that is what, when you say, for example, what comes to the mind of a young girl when you say a doll, Barbie? Yes. Marketers need an insightful way to represent how brand knowledge exists in consumer memory. What comes to, let us say, someone's mind when you say engineering, IIT. Now, there are several dimensions of brand knowledge, and you see, it's a very composite kind of a picture in front of you, wherein brand knowledge goes towards two directions in terms of brand awareness and brand image. And then brand awareness goes towards brand recall and brand recognition. Brand awareness has a context of integrated marketing communication or marketing communication, because that is how you generate brand awareness, and it puts up an element of recall as well as recognition, and that is where the story practically starts. And then comes in brand image, wherein it has an element of brand association, several types of brand associations, favorability of brand associations, strength of brand associations, uniqueness of brand associations. And then someone who loves a particular kind of a burger, that is what I am talking of. Someone who loves a particular kind of a chocolate, Boneville, and then you give anything, they would love to eat that, but finally if you give them a choice, they would come back to that. For example, 5-star, one of my own favorites basically. So give me any chocolate, I love it, but 5-star is my first preference. Now then you go for type of associations related to attributes, benefits, and then attitudes. Now attitude again, you see, all these are largely intangibles, and what we are trying to do since the beginning of the sequence of these sessions is we are trying to convert intangibles into tangibles in terms of valuation. Now that is where the art lies actually, but who would be enabling you to do that? Consumer. So attributes, then there are product related attributes and non-product related attributes, softer ones, price, packaging, user imagery, and so on, usage imagery also. And then benefits, functional, experiential, symbolic. Let me talk about this in slightly longer lengths. Brand awareness is related to the strength of the brand node or trace in memory, which we can measure as the consumer's ability to identify the brand under different conditions. Let us say a tourist place kind of, let us say whichever famous tourist place you remember at this moment, let us say God's own country, Kerala. People who would have gone there, just ask them, and they have this context of memory associated with God's own country, Kerala, and their happiness which they got in visiting Kerala. And definitely it is a beautiful place, you should go there sometime. Brand awareness consists of brand recognition and brand recall performance. Brand recognition is consumers' ability to confirm prior exposure to the brand when given the brand as a cue. Which of the tourist place you like most? That is where consumer would have a spontaneous kind of an answer. ability to recognize the brand at a store which they have already been exposed in terms of products basically. And I am talking of tourist spots. You see, you would have visited several places. Many a times you ask my daughter, she would say Nainital, her favorite place. For example, without reading the name, a customer can identify the brand as McDonald's because it is highly recognizable M logo owing to extensive promotions and customer exposure. And I have talked about this at length. Basically, McDonald's, they have come a far way in terms of generating brand awareness basically. A half-eaten apple logo helps customers recognize it as Apple company. And recently, I saw a vague image with slightly longer hair, beard, not so clear face, and a robe kind of, an apparel, and immediately a young kid told me that he is Baba Ramdev and he is representing Patanjali. That is where the brand perspective comes in. So, you see, that is how Patanjali is rising sharp, and they have come a far way in terms of as far as their brand awareness goes. Brand recall is consumers' ability to retrieve the brand from memory when given the product category, the needs fulfilled by the category, or a purchase or usage situation as a cue. For example, if someone asks about your favorite carbonated beverage, more than 50% will say Pepsi or Coca-Cola. Whole of the world is divided in between two. For example, you talk about, let us say, some chocolate drink, or let us say some food supplement, people have their favorite answers. Let us say you talk about some orange drink, you have Tropicana in mind, I will talk about this. But one of my favorites is Tang. You ask anyone all over the world, Tang. So, whenever someone talks about a premium or expensive watch, brand recall of companies like Omega, Rolex, Swatch happens in our mind. There was a time when HMT was there, and I would be talking of why there was a time comes into picture. HMT still remains in our memory, but there was a time when HMT was taken. I will be talking about these elements later on when I would be referring to brand life cycle and those kind of aspects. But as of now, just remember brand awareness and brand recall when, for example, you may talk about Tanishq, you may talk about Titan, you may talk about several brands which have lots of recall associated with them. There are primarily two types of brand recall: aided brand recall, unaided brand recall. Brand recall can be, and these are research methodologies also. Brand recall can be estimated as percentage based on how many people were able to recognize or recall the brand as compared to the total people, and then you create a percentage. You want to know actually that is your brand awareness effort fruitful or no. Brands with the highest recall share in the Indian Premier League, Statista talks about some teams basically, or some IPL platforms, I think basically Hotstar specials, Vivo, Swiggy, Dream11, Paytm and so on. So anyways, you have lots of statistics available on Statista about several kinds of things basically. Cricket definitely is loved by Indians, and these organizations are enjoying that kind of thing basically. So, brand recall percentage is equal to people able to recall slash total people in the experiment or survey multiplied by 100. Now, that is how brand recall percentage is calculated. Now, coming to brand image, the consumer's perception about a brand as reflected by the brand associations held in consumer memory. Perception about a brand. Brand image is the perception of a brand in the minds of people, persons. It can be considered to be a mirror reflection of the brand personality or product being. It is what people believe about brand, their thoughts, feelings and expectations. It's slightly difficult to understand I should mention that you see, image has several kinds of aspects. You talk to someone about, her vehicle, for example. This young girl, she is looking at her vehicle with the perspective of freedom, mobility. She has found this, has been gifted a new scooter by her father, and then she is using this Activa to, commute, to go to her college and so on. So, you see, that particular image which she carries about this brand is very different as compared to, let us say, image of a person, carried by a person who is actually not so intensely associated with this brand. And that is where brand image, persona and personality of an individual and personality of the brand, they come all together. So, let's let's try to simplify this aspect in our minds while we are discussing these kind of terms. I definitely request you to think in terms of your favorite brands with which you resonate or with whom you resonate, and I will be coming to that pyramid which will be talking about this specifically. See, creating a positive brand image takes marketing programs that link strong, favorable and unique associations, brand associations to the brand in memory. Colgate is that brand name which is popular in nearly every household worldwide, and there are several aspects to it. Although there is a very unique element of toothbrushes and toothpaste. Several toothbrushes, they talked about equal bristles earlier basically, and that contributed into brand recall, brand power, brand awareness, brand image as well in due course of time. But today all of them talk about being zigzag. So, this kind of an element, just carry this in mind, that awareness related to a particular kind of a positioning aspect gets changed in due course of time, and the product itself is repositioned, and so as the brand. So I will be talking about brand positioning in a short while, or let us say in next session or so, but till then keep this aspect in mind. And you see, why am I digressing partially when I am going ahead with this kind of a discussion wherein we are moving towards brand value chain? Because these aspects are so soft and intangible in nature, they cannot be so easily specifically quantified in all the terms. All these terms which we are trying to discuss, they must be understood with lot of context of the researches which have been done on them, then our own experiences also, and the examples most of all. So, keep these three aspects together while thinking in terms of these terms. Please do not look at these as specific definitions to be followed and to be remembered. Just look at the context and try to derive your understanding out of these. Now, brand image has an aspect of strength of brand associations. More deeply a person thinks about product information and relates it to existing brand knowledge we have talked about, stronger is the resulting brand association. So, how deeply you are associated with a particular kind of a brand is related to your brand knowledge, and hence the strength of the brand association. Favorability of brand association is higher when a brand possesses relevant attributes and benefits that satisfy consumer needs and wants. One of my research associates, Colonel Vijay Sharma, he is doing a very important research on customer centric aspects of healthcare. Now, here I remember his research and his inputs which he shares with me often basically. You you see, favorability of brand associations, wherein he talks about several kinds of hospitals and healthcare services which are customer centric basically. And in one of our discussions, he was referring to some of the patient based experiences which they have had in terms of attributes, specifically in terms of the benefits which they have got from different kinds of hospital and healthcare services. And that is where I remember the names of these great institutions like Arvind Eye Care, Narayan Hrudyalaya and so on. And if you remember those examples, and why not, you may even think in terms of the schools which you would have gone to. See, or you may talk to other people about their school based experiences basically. And you see, here I am not just mentioning about organizations which are known to all or known to few. I am just talking about organizations or names or products or services associated with their target customers specifically. And that is why we initiated our discussion in terms of target customers. So, then comes in uniqueness of brand associations. Unique selling proposition of the product provides brands with sustainable competitive advantage. And here again the authors talk about the differentiation. And you see, this differential effect is the point of concentration. Why Titan is different, why Coke is different, why Huggies are different, why Pampers are different than Huggies, why Pepsi is different than Coke and Coke is different than Pepsi, as why LIC is different to other insurance companies, why Patanjali is different as compared to other organizations, or their products are different to other contemporary products, Nike, or let us say a particular kind of a school you would have visited, as I said, a hospital. You may choose to think in terms of any, or for example your headphones. Headphones is one of my favorite examples because I have realized that it has become the part of our body system now actually. You see, I have seen many people not putting off their headphones at all for long parts of their day, and that is why this is a very important product, hence the brands. Pens for example, computers. You see, this product stays with us, and mobile I should not be mentioning, that has already become the part of our complete system. Now comes in an aspect of associative network memory model, and we are talking of associations, brand associations. And I will be briefly mentioning this or let us say opening it up in front of you, and would be coming back to this in detail in an insightful manner with a very interesting example. But before that, let me just open it up or introduce it to you. Associative network memory model views memory as a network of nodes. Now you see, branding, marketing, we have utilized science a lot as far as developing our understanding goes, which has enabled us to a larger context and larger levels basically. So, associative network memory model views memory as a network of nodes and connecting links, in which nodes represent stored information or concepts and links represent the strength of association between the nodes. Any type of information, whether it is verbal, abstract or contextual, can be stored in memory network. Just remember this, just think of this, these aspects on nodes, connecting links and context, verbal and abstract aspects of as far as information goes. Just try to imagine how it works. I will be using one example to elaborate this for you, and then I will be completing the picture in front of you as far as that particular model from where I initiated my discussion. Here it is in front of you, starting from brand knowledge to brand image and brand awareness and several aspects of brand image. So, just keep this model in your mind till then. I will be coming back to you with associative memory aspects related to networks and nodes. It is not complicated at all. Believe me, you will enjoy it. I will be joining you soon. Till then, goodbye.